Okay, looks like we're up. So next up is a panel on, well, Capital 3.0 and decentralized finance. This has been a very growing theme over the last 12 months, and we have the best people that represent that movement. So without further ado, please welcome Kyle from B0X, Alex from Xeron, Mike from Wire, Felix from Sat Protocol, and the panel will be moderated by Thomas from Wire as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you for being here at the Ethereum Hackathon. Those of you in the audience, I don't know if you're slacking off right now or what's going on, but thank you for being here. I'm joined, of course, by fabulous panelists, right? So we already got some introductions going around, but Kyle, can you start by introducing yourself and how you're contributing to the decentralized finance ecosystem?
Hi, my name is Kyle Kistner. I am operations lead, co-founder of BZX. We're a margin lending protocol. We're enabling you to get the full functionality that you would get out of exchanges, except using smart contracts. It's very important that the space moves away from using centralized exchanges and towards fulfilling the promise of cryptocurrency, which is being in charge of your own money. And that's something we're working towards.
Sweet. My name is Felix, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sat Protocol. We are a protocol that allows you to create a Set token, which is a token that represents a number of other tokens. And in addition to that, we allow the automated managed portfolios to be created from our technology as well.
Awesome. My name is Alex. I am co-founder and the CTO at Xerion, and we are trying to build a trustless bank on top of DeFi protocols. So pretty much what we are trying to do, we want to provide our users with traditional financial services, but not taking control over their assets.
Michael Dunworth, co-founder and CEO of Wire. Wire is connecting the bridge between fiat and crypto, so we're a fully regulated entity, North America, Hong Kong, Australia, and basically our job is to allow anyone who's building decentralized applications, we work with centralized applications, to address their total addressable market. So not just crypto people, but anyone with a bank account, anyone with fiat, that's the sort of the the customer profile that we want people to be talking to.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Just to back up a second, for those who don't know about a decentralized finance, aka DeFi, it's this primitive financial ecosystem that's been popping up on Ethereum, right? The whole narrative here is to bank the unbanked, to have this financial services firm really in your pocket, right? So different protocols and dApps are trying to bring this to fruition. So whether that's different components like trading, you can think about 0x and those kind of protocols adding some capability there. Lending, Dharma and Compound, they're doing some interesting work. Derivatives, of course, BZX, DYDX, Augur, so on and so forth, and then bundling of these things into potential investment products like what Set and Basket is doing. So the narrative is very, very interesting, and it's very early, and it can have a lot of impact worldwide, right? But I'd love to hear from you guys first, and feel free to jump in, as you please, and I'll make sure everything is tame over here. But what do you think is the actual mission for DeFi? What does success look like to you in the future?
So to me, there's two visions of what DeFi success looks like. The first goal, which I think is completely attainable, which is maybe the essential promise, would be just replacing the current cryptocurrency, crypto exchange infrastructure with our own open finance tools. The bigger goal is to get mainstream adoption, and then past that, the banking of the unbanked. And as I see DeFi into the future, I definitely see us being able to move some of these more established players with network effects like Binance and Coinbase out and get some more adoption from... Sorry, my phone just went off and I'm making it silent.
No worries.
But I do think that mainstream adoption will be tricky, and I have dimmer hopes for the banking of the unbanked and inclusive finance. I just don't see that happening within the next few years, given all the trouble we have just making our own true believers come over and use our own products. But yeah, that's what I think success looks like for DeFi.
Sure.
For me, I think part of it is like, what do we not want to happen with the system? And we've seen with the traditional financial system, I think most of us have lived through 2008 and see the effects of that financial crisis. We're also seeing the effects of these large conglomerates and huge tech companies having total control over people's data, privacy, money, etc. And people need an option, a way to exit the current system if they can't influence or change it. People don't have the power right now to change Facebook or change Goldman Sachs or the financial system so it works for them. So many people are outcasted from our current financial system, and people don't have alternatives. So with open finance or decentralized finance, we want to provide these marginalized people like another option at the very least. And we hope that using this new technology, we can build an option that is more open, fair, transparent, all these kind of buzzwordy things that this industry says. But I mean, what success looks like is that we have a system that's more inclusive and one where that everyone can participate. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of harm that we can also do. Like if we build a system and architect one that only benefits like a few people, the arbitrageurs or people with capital, that doesn't necessarily help society a lot.
All right, it's really hard to add anything to what the guys already said. But I think the main purpose of DeFi is just to build a financial service in new financial system where people actually own their access, have the access over their assets. And I think in the future it might solve two different problems. So first of all, it may provide financial services to people who don't have access to traditional financial services. Because here in the States it's not such a big a problem, but there are lots of countries that do not have access to traditional banking system. So it might be easier for them to get access to open finance. And the second problem that might be solved for the markets like the US is that people will get alternative instruments. So even though they can still use traditional financial services, it's always nice when you have some alternative options. And instead of going to a bank straight away, you might consider doing some alternative investment options. So I think that will be the goal for now.
Yeah, they already said it, but I'd say clearest North Star for DeFi is access, accessibility. Every single person, if it was $25 to build a Wells Fargo competitor, there'd be a shit ton of Wells Fargo competitors basically, and as the customers, we're going to win, the end users are going to win. End users is this, like in this market is planet Earth, and there's like 6 or 8 billion of us, I don't know, but that's a pretty good total addressable market to make happy. So if it costs nothing to start a bank, the competition in the market just gets insane. Similar sort of you guys are pretty much a bank. It's a trustless bank. If you think about PewDiePie on YouTube, technically what he does costs $500, camera, internet connection, and all that stuff. He's getting more viewership, which is important in media. He's getting more viewership than the season finale of Friends in North America back in the day. That's nuts. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think you guys summed it up really well. There's a couple key value propositions that DeFi is bringing to the table, whether it's the non-custodial nature, someone actually truly owning these assets. And, there's tons of people that have Android phones and access to applications and data plans and things like that all over the world, but they don't have access to S&P 500 stock, right? Even if you're in a market like India or Vietnam, you need a high-flying broker that has access to an international securities account. You also need a lot of money, right? These things aren't denominated. They're denominated in hundreds of dollars, not cents. So it's just not accessible to the average citizen. So that access story is also very important. But what Kyle was getting at was success isn't exactly around the corner. There's all these little things we have to solve to get there. And I would actually argue the UX of DeFi is pretty good already compared to the UX of traditional finance. Remember the first time you went and got a bank account, you literally had to go to the branch I don't know if they were emailing you papers or faxing them at the time. I used to be a banker at Citi, and we used to use the fax machine all the time, right? So how is that plausible to the unbanked? It's just simply not. But so my argument is the DeFi UX is already pretty solid, but how come the masses aren't just rushing towards us? What are these incremental problems that need to be solved?
Okay, I'll go for that one. UX, user experience. If I use something, I want to get a good experience. Like, it's not about clicks, it's not about design, it's not about UI. I mean, it is about that. That's part of it. But it's really, really hard to tell me that I got to collateralize $1,500 worth of Ethereum to draw down $1,000 worth of DAI. And, you know, while I'm changing websites, Chase Bank is giving me pop-ups that are like shoved in my face saying $2,000 credit card, $2,000 credit card. Like, that's a consideration that I don't think a lot of people talk about. That'll get there eventually, but yeah, UX for this market, like the developed world, got to beat that.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I think the main problem right now is not maybe the UX in terms of design or whatever, but it's just a number of steps that user need to go through to actually get access to the services. So imagine if you don't have any crypto yet. So like how many steps, how many different websites you need to open to actually get access to the financial services. And so I think with the work of those guys solving the problem with buying crypto with credit cards and also different applications built on top of protocols, we are getting to the goal, but we are not there yet.
I think that dealing with dApps is scary for most people. It's scary. You have to know your private key, like where are you sending your money? Do you know what you're doing? What's happening when you're signing a transaction? Am I sending it to the right place? Can I trust this website? Am I just sending it to like a black hole? I think that we have a lot of
With the private
to
key
get
at
over.
all. Like, what should I do with it? Shall I keep it somewhere? Shall I write it down?
Yeah, but on the, I mean, I think a lot of progress is being made. You're absolutely right. For people who are crypto native, it's way easier to use DeFi projects than actually going and meeting someone in person, going to a retail bank store and performing a transaction. But most people aren't crypto native. People don't understand these things, and there's a high learning curve to get there. And I think that there's a lot of good work being done by many, many projects to kind of make things easier for people to get started.
So I want to push back a little bit on the user experience of traditional finance. Maybe back in the day, you had to go to a bank branch and open up an account. Nowadays, you got Charles Schwab, Capital One 360. You can open up a bank account from your couch or on your smartphone without any big issue. So I do have to question the premise of whether the user experience of DeFi is easier, and also what you're thinking of when you're thinking of the starting point on onboarding. Like when you talk about using some dApp like Augur or Compound, it's not just when you go to the website. It starts at the moment that you get onboarded onto Ethereum itself and other currencies that are interoperable with it. So you have to download browser extensions. We have simpler solutions that involve your mobile phone and all kinds of complicated linking of different devices. I think that as Felix said, using DeFi products can be daunting, and he's somebody who builds DeFi products. So, the user experience for somebody who's already using crypto, who's already onboarded into crypto, maybe not so bad, but the user experience for somebody who's not been onboarded onto crypto is far worse. And there's these frictional costs associated with getting onboarded onto crypto and these massive network effects that benefit the user experience. Like if your boss gets all of his money in an electronic bank account and sends it to your electronic bank account, that's really easy, and it's because of these network effects, and there's no need for these frictional costs.
Yeah, I think you guys are totally onto something that since we're already crypto heads, copy pasting addresses, seed phrases, things like that make a lot of sense to us. But someone new coming into the space, like what Felix was saying, it just doesn't inspire confidence, right? Even after the financial crisis, okay, a little bit after the financial crisis, people are still trusting banks because they want to point the finger at someone if they, lose access to their money. With DeFi, with where we are with seed phrases and private key management, you only have yourself to blame, and that's not a solution that's acceptable yet. It's not a narrative that people have just come to terms with quite yet. Yeah.
Yep. So did I interrupt you?
No,
Or are
no.
we still going?
Please.
Okay. So I think one thing that's really interesting is like that narrative of be your own bank. Everyone used to talk about, Bitcoin, you can be your own bank and stuff. It's not be your own bank vault. It's be your own bank. So right now, if you think about DeFi, right? DeFi is this, is it composability is the term or whatever the terms that you use. You stitch all these things together and you've got a bank. You've got somewhere you can park your money and earn interest on it. You've got somewhere you can take out a loan. You've got somewhere you can get stability. You're your own bank. And, you secure it all through my crypto, keep key, whatever it is. That the DeFi narrative, if you're still sort of meh on it, think of it like everyone getting AOL CDs in their cereal. I'm from Australia. We didn't have AOL, but it's basically the equivalent of the internet where people say, hey, welcome to the internet. Do you want to look at sports? Do you want to look at entertainment? Do you want to look at news? Do you want to look at this or whatever, horoscopes? This is what DeFi is. Welcome to like a value network. Do you want to take a loan? Do you want to make money? Do you want to secure your money? Shit like that. Pardon the language.
Yeah, but I will. Do you want to keep talking? I just wanted to add that even like right now with all these protocols, it's quite overwhelming for people even in crypto. Like not for those who are in DeFi already, but for normal people who, let's say, bought Ethereum a couple of years ago. And for them, like there's so many protocols and they kind of overwhelmed with that. And so that's, I guess, even for them, so they know what private keys are, but it's still kind of hard to start using DeFi because they might not completely understand what's going on out there, what exact services they need to use, how secure it is. So we need some adoption in that regard as well, I think.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of issues right now for that quick adoption narrative. I'd love to shift the conversation to a new topic, which is really trends for protocols and dApps, right? So we have a couple protocol proprietors here, as someone who's building on top of those protocols here, Alex. And the whole DeFi space came to fruition really in 2017 and 2018. You really saw a lot of people go to market. And in 2017, the token model for generating funds and perhaps accruing value to protocol proprietors was the way to go. But now the trend is more towards products and productizing on top of your protocol. So you see that with many examples, right? DYDX has Expo Trading, Dharma has Lever, but none of these guys have tokens. And then even if you look at 0x, who has a token, they've even productized a little bit with a 0x instant. As a dApp developer, Alex, how do you feel about this? Do protocols are clearly in the best position to build a demonstration of their product, right? Does that alienate dApp developers like yourself?
Well, that's a really good question because it's really hard to tell. And I feel like protocols are well positioned right now, but the competition there is so high. And since everyone is open source, it's pretty easy to create another protocol that solves the same problem but cheaper. So that's why I feel protocols are trying to build products on top of their protocols and actually make money on the level of products rather than protocols. So there's a nice example of Kyber and Uniswap, for instance. So Kyber existed in quite a while, and then just Uniswap came around, and they created a very similar protocol that solved exactly the same problem, but slightly cheaper. So, and a lot of users transferred to Uniswap. But on the other hand, little later, Kyber said, all right, we're a protocol and can just integrate Uniswap liquidity pools into our system. So now they're kind of sharing the same liquidity. And it's really hard, so the competition is really interesting. And I feel the winner is going to be the one who is going to get the most of liquidity. And it's like a really hard to define where is the line between whether it's yours liquidity or it's like a shared liquidity because you can easily connect all the protocols all together or build like more fancy protocols on top of existing like layer 1 protocols. But after all, I think it's going to be a game of liquidity, and like the ones who will manage to aggregate the bigger liquidity around there, whatever you call it, product or protocol, are going to win this game. So that's my vision on that.
So, regarding whether projects are in the best position to build out a demonstration of their product, I actually think that projects are in a position to build a better demonstration than most other teams would be. So, if a project puts out their own product, it's probably going to be maybe in the 90th percentile of what could be done. Whereas there are some teams that are so good at user experience that they can actually outclass what the project would do themselves. You know, I look at, Zerion, they kind of work on user experience. I look at Instadap. They're doing really interesting things that, because they just think about user experience, they're able to bring something a little bit extra to the product. I think in terms of the trends, what's going to happen is that projects are going to have kind of a hybrid two-pronged approach. Just like with 0x coming out with their own product, like our project, B0x, we're actually going, we have a protocol, we have 8 different relays building on top of us, but we're also going to be productizing our I tokens, our position tokens, and all of that. And I think there's a relationship between the traction a project has at the outset. 0x could afford to let a whole bunch of different people build on them because they had so much excitement and developer traction. When you have less in the way of developer mindshare, you're more forced into productizing. I think to some extent it's a reflection of the market. The market being in a weak state, there's less expected profits from going out and building projects. There's less developers. The space gets a little bit weaker in that sense, and that's where projects have to kind of fill in. But I think as we look through market cycles, projects will go through times where they're productizing, go through times where they try to have protocol, like the developers work through it. So I think it's something that'll change with time, and it's going to be kind of not one or the other.
I think there's 3 things that any protocol cares about now. The first is liquidity. The second is liquidity. And the third, guess what it is? It's liquidity. That's all that matters right now. And how a protocol achieves that, that's all that, they just need to make that happen. Whether it's building their own dApp on top to initially bootstrap adoption, or if the fastest way is to get other developers to build great dApps and get distribution through them, that's all that matters. And liquidity is basically a proxy for utility in your protocol. How useful is it to the end users? And if you don't have liquidity, your protocol is probably going to just slowly disappear, honestly.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to just build for that. You have to do whatever you can to get liquidity.
This is a great segue into one of the topics I have for discussion. The question I had was, and I think you really answered this already, is whose responsibility is it? Is it the protocol's responsibility to bootstrap liquidity, or is it the dApps who are trying to create great products? The great products, of course, need to be frictionless with great liquidity. There's there will be lots of protocols to choose from, especially when they all go to market. Alex, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the onus completely lies with the protocol layer?
I think it should be the collaboration between both, because the apps and the interfaces, they can't exist without protocols, and at the same time it's really hard for users to access protocols directly. So I think it should be some sort of shared beneficial model that benefits both protocols and applications on top of that, and I guess it's the only way to survive, because applications can integrate multiple protocols at the same time, but at the same time it also gives new users to every protocol out there. And as long as protocol is competitive enough, it's beneficial for everyone, for applications and for protocols to get their users and to share the profit somehow.
Yeah, liquidity is extremely important this year. If you've been following any of the projects in the space, 0x's theme this whole year is liquidity, right? And you've seen that with Hydro and DDEX. Mike, I'd love to lob this question up to you. Wire's a big market maker. There are programs that we can participate in at the protocol layer to bootstrap liquidity. How do you think about which protocols to partner with to help them with their go-to-market strategy?
Which ones to partner with?
Yes, how do you create a great market making program where institutional market makers actually want to come and participate in liquidity bootstrapping?
Yeah. Okay, so market making, liquidity, I 100% agree. I think liquidity is the number one thing. It's a network. All this shit is decentralized networks. Uber is a network. Uber has liquidity. Rider, driver, buyer, seller. It's exactly the same thing. Distribution is the only thing that matters. So when you look at that, if I am a protocol and I'm going to say, right, we're going to pay $3 million to list on Binance, and a lot of people paid $3 million to list on Binance, which is great. If you're holding the bag and the bag goes up like 150%, if you are aiming for everyone to basically buy users, give them you'll pay them to come, but you need an incentive model to make them stay. So I can acquire a user for and I know this is actually going to get to the answer that the question you asked, but basically market making is bootstrapping liquidity. So whether that is offering incentives like, hey, you can get some tokens from 0x to build on top of 0x to encourage liquidity. That's amazing, but it's amazing if the LTV of anyone coming to my protocol is going to stay. Like, there needs to be stickiness. So when we look at that, how are we going to proxy in liquidity or things like that? I think that's really important. Like, all they're going to do is waste money by doing market making strategies and rebates and stuff. If it's very obvious that the token model doesn't make sense, people come, exploit it, and then leave.
Yep.
It's like the shittiest customer ever. If I'm running a cupcake shop, I've got a Groupon deal. I get 60 trillion people through my door one day. They all want 75% off, and then they fuck off and I never see them again. I'm be like, well, that was great. You want to get them in the store, but the equivalent would probably be putting heroin in the cupcake or something, where now they're going to come back every single day. Very macabre example, but I think it gets the point across.
Yeah,
Have an incentive model before you're buying liquidity, because there's no point. People are going to leave. Sorry.
Absolutely. I just want to add on to that. There's only one thing that market makers care about, and it's, can they make money? And there's multiple ways to do that, as he has described. And you want you want natural kind of reasons for that, not artificial reasons to give them money.
Yeah, thanks for answering those questions, guys. Last sort of topic of discussion. Certain protocols have sacrificed a degree of decentralization for better user experience. IDEX comes to mind. They're very decentralized in the settlement process, but some of the matching of the orders, for instance, happens on their servers. They've compromised a little bit of decentralization for user experience. Is the future of DeFi in making these sort of compromises to go to market more quickly, get the user experience and bootstrap liquidity more quickly, or is it about sticking to the grain of pure decentralization?
So what I think is that a lot of people in the crypto space massively overrate how much people care about decentralization. Even people who talk all day about decentralization don't care about decentralization. All anybody cares about is user experience. If at any point you have to make even the slightest compromises on user experience to bring about some more decentralization, don't do it. You've made a terrible mistake. People only want to do what's easy. They'll go down the path of least resistance. That will get the network effects. That will get the liquidity. And we can see the pattern time and time again in all these projects. You look at something like 0x. Yes, the liquidity is picked up. It's done pretty well. But something like IDEX had massive volume, massive success. BitMEX still has some of the biggest volumes in the space when we have plenty of decentralized alternatives. And you can go down the list. There's pretty much not a single instance in which something that made this sort of trade-off came out better for it.
Anything to add there?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, the users like care about two things. Can they make money, same as market makers, or can you save them money or make their lives like significantly easier? And I think DeFi. I mean, we as protocol companies or companies building apps like have to be very very aware of that. And like, what is the BATNA that these users have, which is like the best alternative, right? Or sorry, not BATNA, but alternative. Like, what else can they use? And I think that you're only really going to get really widespread adoption of DeFi when you build something that they can't get like otherwise. So, I mean, the marginalized people are good, to start with. The already crypto native, you make their lives a lot easier. And I think a lot of crypto protocols are focused on what can you do with our protocol that you can't do elsewhere.
I think in addition to two things that users care about that Felix just mentioned, there's the third thing. And the third thing, how do they make sure that they don't lose their money because they put it to some wrong protocol and just stole it from them. And there is I think there is a certain degree where decentralization might be compromised. So for example, if you're talking about decentralized exchanges, I feel it's perfectly fine to have off-chain order books because in spite of user experience, because it's much faster, you still need to trust your relayer, but at the same time, you still make sure that those relayers, they can skip your order, potentially it's a risk, but they can just take and steal your money. So I believe as long as it's below some degree, you can compromise decentralization, but at the very base level, there still should be some certain aspect that should be kept all the time, so that users using our trusted bank or directly any protocols want to make sure that that protocol is not able to just take their money away in no case.
Yeah, same stuff, but basically I feel like this was almost the argument or not the argument, but the post from the Ethereum developer, Vlad and Nick Szabo talking about Bitcoin, decentralization, that's the only thing that matters. And there was the other side was sort of a more pragmatic approach. I feel like the best example I've seen of that is a very slow, a very gradual, pragmatic, kind of hand-holding approach, which it's trust minimized, but it's also they're a great team and they're working together. But MakerDAO, not shilling MakerDAO, but I'm a big fan of them. But they're taking a balanced, pragmatic approach, which is they're not keys to the kingdom when it comes to their smart contracts, but it's give and take. So I think depends how hardcore it is and how significant and impactful what you're doing is. There's a place for both of them.
Yeah. What I'm hearing around the table is DeFi is not going to be an overnight success, especially in 2019 when these market forces are with us as they are. But incremental steps are being made, right? And in 2019, what incremental steps from either your own project or someone else's project are you guys most excited about? We'll start with Kyle.
So I think the thing I'm most excited about in 2019 is the decentralized exchange ecosystem in general becoming more liquid. Getting to the point of liquidity where it's actually considered a viable alternative. I don't see the end of this year having a tipping point where the network effects get great enough that people start leaving the centralized exchanges en masse. But I see ourselves getting set up for that, where projects can actually be viable because they have liquidity to draw from, and they're not just all kind of cloistered in this hollow area where nobody's really using it, but they've built all this neat stuff. I'm really excited about the prospect of basically turning all of the crypto wallets into interest-bearing accounts and getting people onboarded in a massive way, in the lending market and by extension giving liquidity to the exchange market. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2019.
I'm gonna jump back to the question before that's also related to this question. Is I'm excited about. I mean, we're in an Ethereum community, but centralization. I'm excited about better user experiences. I'm excited about hosted wallets and better ways to onboard new users that may start, more centralized than not. They're hosted like kind of private keys, but eventually, as users get smarter and are onboarded, they can choose to like handle their own private keys over time. So I'm excited about those new kind of onboarding technologies and techniques.
Yeah, I agree that onboarding right now is one of the main challenges that stops adoption. And I'm really excited to see more users starting using DeFi because right now we have a lot of protocols that are already working, but we still have the same 10,000 people working around DeFi and like the apps in general. So I really hope as soon as some of the onboarding problems are solved, we will see more users using all those protocols. Maybe not users who don't have any crypto yet, but at least users who have Bitcoin or Ethereum, so the ones who know a little bit about crypto in general, but still didn't understand how they can take over the DeFi and start using it.
I'd say multi-collateral DAI is the most exciting thing I'm waiting to hit. I think that's going to be rad. Best of luck deploying it. I hope it all goes smoothly. Yeah, that, and then it'd be awesome productizing the Oracle, which is battle tested, then rent seeking off that instead of having to try new Oracle systems. So, wish list.
How big's that bag, Mike?
It's really heavy.
Well, thank you all for joining, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with the audience. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Happy hacking.